everyone, and welcome to the Your Heart Speaks Summit, how to create an exciting, passionate, and fulfilling life you've always wanted now. I'm really honored to introduce our guest today, Dominique Hurley. Dominique Hurley is an intuitive artist, a light worker, and a master educator. Her life purpose is to travel the world, exploring and expressing her love of beauty and the beauty of love. She does this through painting, through photography, writing, teaching, lifelong learning, and simple intuitive living. Her business purpose is to help you to connect to your true self, to live an inspired life. She does this through her energy-infused art and intuitive tools that nourish your transformational journey. She's also the creator of the Intuition into Action Treasure Map, the 5 steps to activate your intuition for a happy and healthy life. Dominique lives in St. John's on the island of Newfoundland, at the most easterly point of Canada, but she works at a distance. So it doesn't matter where you live, you too can benefit from what she was meant to share. And Dominique's website is dominiquehurley.com, and you can find out all about the great things that Dominique does there. But so I want to welcome Dominique. Hello.
Hello, Iola. It is so lovely being here with you today.
Yes, it's a beautiful day. So Dominique, our topic today is a good one. It's intuition into action.
Which is perfect when it comes to your summit, your heart speaks, because your intuition is the language of the heart. Your intuition is that communication line between your right brain and your heart. So we're really on the same wavelength here, and so it's lovely being part of this. Thank you again.
My pleasure. Dominique, so talking about intuition action, just by reading your bio, I mean, this is what you specialize. You're doing all these creative arts. There's the creative expression, photography, painting. You do intuitive painting. So this is something that you know really well. So tell me how you experience your intuition, how it works for you in that process of your creative arts, how you explore.
Mm-hmm. Well, it started back in the late 80s when I was working for government. I had reached, my goal. I was very much a type A personality. I was goal-oriented. I had reached my dream job right out of university, but after a few years, the dream job wasn't so dreamy anymore. And so the more I was unhappy at work, the more I painted for my own sanity, for my own peace of mind and peace of heart. And the studio became for me my classroom, my therapy room, my teacher. I learned so much about life in my art because it was my spiritual connection to the divine. It was really much more than, a technical painting. It was much more about the process. And that's when I started intuitive painting for myself, which when I started traveling the world teaching English, went more into the photography, the contemplative photography. But now I've gone much more into the painting process, teaching the process, but also teaching people how to connect to their intuition so they can live aligned to their heart, aligned to their truth, and to create that life by design. So to be creative not only in their art, but to be creative in their life, which is what I've done for myself, and I'm still in the process of doing. I'm far from being perfect at it, but I followed my intuition across the world, and it's not a straight line. It is a zigzaggy line when you start listening to your intuition. But the more baby steps you take, the more you see, wow, that was wonderful and totally unexpected, but you learn to trust those little messages that say, go study photography on Vancouver Island. Like, well, but I was planning to go back overseas to teach. I just finished my Master's of Education. Go back to school again? Well, it's like, no, follow it. And by then I knew that I could take the leaps of faith, and that's why I keep these big moves. Is whenever I am inspired, I get the messages, I ask for confirmation, there are signs, the universe is talking to us continuously, and not just through the ordinary channels of intuition like your clairvoyance, your inner sight, your inner hearing, all those inner senses, but also in what's happening around you. So this is what I'm teaching people, to get in touch with that, to realize, oh, that's intuition, and to pay attention to it.
I love that. I like making it kind of a game. Like I remember when I first, woke up to this, and I also started painting when I woke up, and it just started flooding out of me, and art became my teacher. It was how I moved a lot of energy. It showed me so much. It taught me so much about trust. So I am 100% in line with what you're saying. But then the messages from like you're saying, the communication coming from the outside too, not just the internal process. Like the wind would just start blowing, and a piece of paper would just flow down, across the sidewalk, and I would pick it up and be inquisitive about it, and I made it kind of a game. It was a fun thing. It was not every single piece of paper or leaf or whatever it was a confirmation, but a lot of it was. And I don't know if you could speak more to that, like when you say you're teaching people, what else are you telling them to pay attention to?
Well, in terms of the 5 steps to activate your intuition, when I go through that workshop, it's really, I'll outline those 5 steps. The first one is basically get clear on what the questions are in your heart, because you're always asking questions to the universe or to God or whatever your belief system is. This doesn't have to be of any denomination. It's a much more universal spirituality. And you're always asking questions, but if you got to be careful what you ask for. And so you really want your questions to be conscious. And once you ask, then you get into what you're saying there, Yola, is that playful state of childhood wonder and curiosity. I mean, imagine a child who's going to their parents' egg hunt for Easter. I mean, of course they believe that there's eggs out there to find, and that's how we need to be in terms of we've asked, and so we have to completely trust that the answers are there. It's just becoming aware of them. And if our angels or our guides or your heart, again, whatever terms you're comfortable with, if they can't reach you through one way, they'll find another way to communicate. And it is like a game. I was just at a retreat this past weekend where I was teaching, but when I wasn't teaching, I was taking some of the workshops, and we were making mala beads. And twice, one of the beads fell off in terms of just rolled off on the floor, and I couldn't find it. And, the first time I didn't pay attention to it. It's like, just go find the bead and put it back on. But the second time that it happened, and it's not like, I was being fumbly or anything, I decided, well, maybe I should count these. And Leader had said that we had 108 beads in our little pouch. And it's like, well, something told me, maybe I have one too many. So why not count them? And indeed, I had 109. I needed to get rid of that extra bead. And so it's just that kind of communication and game. It's of, I see this word that matches a word. Like on my vision board, I had the word visionary, which didn't mean much to me at the time. This was years ago. And all of a sudden, I got these chills down my spine when I was looking at a website that I ended up on their site the day that they launched, on the day that I joined Facebook for the first time. It's like this series of synchronicities that led me to finding out that I need to be at the Vienna Academy of Visionary Art next year. And I did go because all these clues led to it and gave me the faith that, yes, indeed. And, I was just becoming a full-time artist at the time, whereas I've been part-time since the 80s and also teaching on the side, but I was investing more of my time and my finances into my art. So I didn't have what I needed to go and study a year in Europe. It wasn't part of my budget, but the way I like to live is debt-free, and if I need something, then I collect the finances ahead of time. And so, I was telling my friend in the parking lot of a yoga studio where we were about to go for class, saying, look, I've just gotten this message that I'm going to go study in Vienna. But my own fear is that, yes, but, your spirit says yes, but your ego says, but you don't have the money, but that's a year of your life. But, that fear that kicks in. And so we go into the yoga studio, and I'd had art on display there for over a year and hadn't sold a piece. But the teacher looks up at me after she comes out of her private class. She goes, oh, my client would like to buy this painting. And to me, that was like a sign from the universe. It's like, don't worry, you'll be financed. It's like, this is a confirmation sign. And indeed, I worked hard. It was a 7-part financing plan, and I had 6 months to put it together. But then that's where your left brain comes into it. You get the messages, accessing is step 2. Step 3 is act, take inspired action. So I took all those inspired actions on how to raise that money, and but let it be inspired, not busy action. So it's ask, access, act, and the next one. Oh, no, I actually skipped a step there. Sorry, folks. Analyze. Analyze is when your left and right brain come in together. So that's when basically I was like, oh, somebody just bought a painting. To me, what does that mean? Well, that means the universe is going to support me. It's where that you put meaning to everything, because everything has meaning when you're in that state of hyper awareness, looking for signs.
Mm-hmm.
And so you analyze it, and when you figure out what it means, then you take inspired action.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last step for me is to allow things to evolve in divine timing. It may not happen immediately, or the piece of the puzzle of why I ended up studying at that place at that time for 6 months may not reveal itself. In some cases, it's been like 20, 30 years. I just became a certified naturopath last year, naturotherapist, depending on the province. And because I was able to submit workshop proof of study for over 1,000 hours, but I'm still not sure what I'm going to do with that. Like that's another piece of the puzzle, and I'm trusting it's important. And how I ended up getting it and why I ended up getting it was, it's all these twists and turns, but it's about trusting and having that sense of exploration. Boy, I could talk about this nonstop for hours.
I know, so could I. But you know what I love that you just brought up, and I love that we brought it up because it's something that I haven't really discussed it in any other of the interviews that we've done on the summit. But not only allowing, but it feeds into allowing, but this time. I mean, like for me, there's two different aspects of time. There's the very linear aspect of time that, the day, the sun goes around and the weeks and the days, etc. And then there's this, like you said, a bigger element of time where you have to trust the creative process. And I like to, when I speak about it, it would be something on the lines of saying, if you've decided to do something, everyone's getting ready already. You make you make that choice. You decide. You say, yes, that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to take that action. And then all the pieces in the universe have to come together as well. So there's a time for the creation. You have to allow all the other pieces to be ready too. You might be ready, but the people that you're going to serve might not be ready. They're getting ready. And I think when those two meet, that's when you get, like you say, that hindsight where you're like, now I know why I did that course, because now I can qualify for this. I don't know what I'm going to do with this yet, this naturopath thing. I don't know how that's going to fit in, but I'm trusting that process.
Yes. Well, I was just walking the labyrinth. I don't know if you've ever walked a labyrinth before.
I have. Yes, I have.
And every time I walk it, I have a different mood. And actually, I spent April and May painting different experiences of the labyrinth. So I've got about 5 or 6 different labyrinth paintings right now on my website that you can see. But one day I felt like I was just joyfully floating above as I was dancing through the labyrinth instead of the slow, easy walk. And like every time it's completely different. And it's very much like our higher self is that floating one that can see the whole picture and knows where it's leading to the center and back out again. Whereas, me as the human being with one foot in front of the other, I'm just following the path. Yeah. And it twists and turns and it gets close to the center and all of a sudden you're back far again. But you know that it's going towards your highest good. You know that it's going towards your center, towards peace, towards exactly what it is you need in that moment. And so I find life is very much like that. And sure, sometimes I might jump over the walls or something and get off track, but that's when your intuition kicks in and you get those little taps on the shoulders that, oh, you're not really doing what's aligned. Are you really on track here? And if you don't listen to those, it might end up a 2x4. And it's like, that's when you get the burnout or the getting ill, or your relationships break down in the sense that you're just not, I'm not saying the relationships break down because you're off track. Sometimes it's on track for that relationship to break down. But in terms of things start breaking down around you when you're not aligned with yourself. Because if you haven't given to yourself, there's nothing left to give to others, right? So your happiness and your peace is really the only thing you can take care of. And it's from that peace, it's from that heart alignment that there's so much more to give the world.
It's so beautiful. It's such a beautiful space. And I want to just do this too, because in your bio you talk about for the love of beauty and the beauty of love. I love that line. I love how you sum that up, because it's you're speaking about the sense of beauty and looking through this. Like for me, beauty is a sense. It's not, you don't only have your eyes to see as a sense to see, but beauty is a sense as well. And I think that's what you're alluding to. Can you talk about that?
Sure, that is my personal motto. Is my purpose is to travel through life expressing love and expressing my love of beauty and the beauty of love, and that is something I figured out about 20 years ago when I was doing work through the books with Stephen Covey and Hiram Smith. What matters most, finding your life purpose. This is not something new. It's something that people have been working on for a long time. But I really wanted to come to what was my essence. And it was during one of those times where there was a high stress. Someone was ill in my family, and I was in a big caretaker role, and I needed to take care of myself so I could take care of him. And so going through all those exercises, I came to that essence that everything I am about, my values, is about seeking the beauty, creating the beauty, acknowledging and feeling the beauty all around me. And I'm not just talking about art. I'm talking about in the world. I'm talking macro and micro and also the beauty of love. Unconditional love has been one of my paths since I was a child to understand what is unconditional love and why. I was a very sensitive, hypersensitive, empathic child who found it very hard to be around people because I couldn't understand the lack of love. And I'm talking children, I'm talking adults. And it's not that I was in a negative environment at all. It was mostly just little things of how classmates would interact, or how, the fear between people that I didn't understand at the time was fear. But I could sense that lack of unconditional love that is such a rare thing in the world, unconditional love. And so very young, I could feel it from my angel. I could feel it from my guide. And I often favored that connection, the vertical connection, to spirit, but the horizontal connection to our human family I found more challenging. And so I didn't want that to be my truth. And so I'm still on a lifelong path of understanding that and trying to implement that. Now it's a lot easier when I'm alone in my studio to feel the love for humanity. I had a friend once who said, I love humanity. I just don't like people. And it made me laugh so hard because
it's true though. I mean, I can see what she was saying. If you see, yes.
Absolutely. But that helped me realize, and it's not when I started doing intuitive readings for people and doing soul energy portraits and channeling meditations based on their team of divine helpers needs, and that when I started connecting to their higher self and their teams of divine helpers to see their truth, it changed so much for me. Now I can walk into a room and see, the soul essence, not see it with my eyes or energy. I don't see energy in that sense, but to connect to people as much more than their drama or their stories or their pain or their fear, which is a mirror of my own, right? I mean, we see in others what we see in ourselves. That's what scares us. And so this whole love of beauty was through my art, but it was also, when I was being offered chances to go teach, and it was like, okay, well, is teaching English a way for me to explore the beauty of love? And my English courses are a lot more than about English. And it was sort of like, yes, absolutely. So everything I'm offered now, I always check in with this purpose in terms of, is it aligned to what I want to do? And whether it is financially lucrative or not, it is my driving purpose. And I can't recommend it enough to find out what your true essence is, and it's different for everyone, to find that out, and even to have that little sentence somewhere where you can look at it and say, okay, do I make this decision? Is it aligned with that? Everything from, what you eat to what you do to what you say. And I'm not perfect. I'm far from perfect.
That doesn't exist, but I like that you have something like that. I think it's a great tool, just because it keeps you in alignment, like you say, in alignment with who you are and everything you're choosing to do. Because I think it takes away a lot of the distraction, the possibility of distraction, like a meander. There's nothing wrong with distracting yourself and going meandering for a little while. I believe you were talking about that earlier. Divine balance. we have divine balance. Once if you decide to have that as a choice for your life, it exists and it will bring you back. It will bring you back. Even if it's a hard way, like you said, you might get the 2x4, but it'll bring you back into balance. So I think that also gives you freedom, don't you think? Freedom to explore, go and experience things. It's okay. It's okay to go experience something that's sad. You just then, when you're there, you're like, and now I get back.
And to do it guilt-free in terms of, like, when I need to disconnect, like when I'm very, very connected when I do work for clients and all that, but one of my favorite ways to disconnect is to watch movies. And so I will gladly, if there's a day where my energy is low, to me, spending an entire day watching 6 movies in bed, I can do that. I'm a bit of a workaholic. And so, like, there's that balance, right? If I paint, I could go on painting marathons that last, 120 hours in a week, and it's just pure bliss. But if I'm tired or something, I will have a day where I just love movies. And funny enough, messages come through the movies as well, right? So it's not about, oh my goodness, it sounds, like I'm sure, like just check in with yourself, listeners, right now. How many of you judge that 6 movies in one day? Oh my goodness, I don't want, like what judgments just happen right there? And yet I'm a big outdoors person. There's all that other fruitful stuff on the side too, but we do need to allow the ebbs and flows of our energy, and knowing that, hey, maybe I was moved to stay in bed because I'm fighting some sort of virus and my body needed that downtime, or who knows what it is. Like, I've learned to trust and to allow what is happening on many, many different levels. Now, if I get stuck there, then yes, I have to check in. It's like, is this for my highest or good? And I'm always asking for messages, and I have my little routine of yoga and dance on my mini trampoline in the morning that puts me back in alignment and helps me check in and boost up if ever I get a little too low because of usually technology. I built my own website, and I'm a bit of an ex-technophobe, and so that side of the business sometimes gets me overwhelmed in that. So it's just about checking in and saying, okay, is this a time to ask for help? Is this a time to take a break? Because really, I could be working the next 5 hours and I wouldn't get anything done because I'm not in that right energy. Yeah. So I've gone off track here, but it's
no, it makes sense. It's important. I think it's important to find to balance all those aspects. Because I'm too, I painting. When you do anything creative like that, it's easy to get sucked into that, like you said, the vertical connection, and you need to still be in your body. So like you jumping on your trampoline or going for yoga, I think those are really. It's like the symbol of the cross, right? You both the soul as well as the body, and to balance those two, especially someone that is very, I think especially people that are very open like you are, to do that physical grounding without processing anything, right? You're not doing it for anybody else. You're just being in your body. You're doing the thing that you're doing, and I think it helps you to even be more open. But you need to ground.
Yeah, and again, it's letting go of labels, and that's part of intuitive living. I mean, I was vegan for 3 years, and a few medical intuitives were telling me that I'd become way too yin and I wasn't grounded, and I needed to bring meat back into my diet to help ground me. But for other reasons, I'd become sensitive to beans and nuts, which really, for a vegan, you need those. And I cried for the first 3 months because it just, on a mental level, it didn't make any sense for me to go back to meat. And yet, it was that allowing yourself and forgiving yourself and just allowing your truth, no matter what other people thought, after you'd gone vegan and you'd been talking about that for a while. And although you respected other people's choices, it was more in terms of, I liked that label at the time. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to let that go. And then I brought chicken and fish back into my diet. And now it may only happen once or twice a year, but it's like sometimes it'll be okay. Go to the natural food aisle and find some healthy, cruelty-free beef and make yourself a hamburger, because that's what your body needs on this day. And it's so living intuitively is about letting go of rules and of following following what's in your highest good in that moment. And so if I have a craving all of a sudden for the hamburger, well, then my body's telling me something. I know that my cravings for chips have nothing to do with any of that, though. That's
I really, really loved.
Yeah, I say I'm a chipaholic. I'm a health food nut and a chipaholic. You know,
I love that. It's called balance. But I love that because what you're saying is letting go of all the things, the beliefs.
Stop shooting yourself.
Yeah, stop shooting yourself. The beliefs that we have, like that sugar is bad, or that, you know, I'm not saying it doesn't have a physiological reaction on your body, but I believe your body knows what it's doing. It knows how to process anything you put into it if you allow it, if you give it that control, if you hand it over to itself and say, you're part of me and this is who we are, and allow it, trust that whatever you crave, like you say, like whatever your body's requiring in that moment, be it rest, be it exercise, be it a chocolate bar, or be it a health food kick for a week or a month, or juice fast, or no food, or whatever it might be, just to be able to allow yourself the freedom to do that.
Well, yeah, well, that's another thing that those medical intuitives were telling me, is that I was doing the vegan thing so perfectly, but I was so hard on myself in terms of I can't go to eat at people's houses, because way back then it was like, you know, vegan was not something that's as easy to do as it is these days. Or going to restaurants or traveling became sort of so stressful that she said, no matter what you put in your body right now, you're not doing any good to yourself. And so I had to, and that was part of the learning the self-love. You know, self-love does not mean only eating healthy, but allowing yourself to eat.
to be yourself, to be whatever it is.
Yes, and to make your rules if you need to, but also to be able to break them without beating yourself up. We beat ourselves up so easily. And I'm sure, I mean, I say we, but I'm sure many people in the audience can relate. We grow up learning to beat ourselves up. I'm just not good enough for this, not good enough for that. And that's where the studio, for me, the art studio, painting, because intuitive painting is a style of painting in layers. And you can see there's a free guide on my website if you want to give this a try under free resources. It's broken down. I've done this with kids and I've done it with adults. And it's, you know, my paintings can have 20, 30 layers, but it's the process of it. And some layers have their awkward teenager stage. Flora Bowley, I think, uses that expression. And how it's not about the look of it. It's about saying, okay, well, this is what it was at the time, and let's build on it. Instead of, you can't go backwards. It's about building upon what you've gotten, and seeing what it is that you like in a painting and putting more of that in it instead of focusing on, oh, I don't like that, or I liked it better back then, or, you know, again, attachment to what it should be, or attachment to how it was. So as you're doing the intuitive painting process, whether I'm doing it on a soul energy portrait for a client or just for my own work, it's really about letting go of fear, letting go of expectations, being open to the mystery, without a plan. Often, I mean, sometimes I will paint according to one of the intuitive readings that I've done, like the visions that I receive. But often it's just, I have no idea for the first 6, 7, 8, 10 layers where that painting is going. Yeah. And that's part of the fun. It has nothing to do with how it's going to look.
Because you've let go of the expectation. Yeah, you've let go of the expectation. So, yeah, that puts a lot of boundaries or, you know, barriers in front of you when you have an expectation. Because then you're starting out with judgment of what it should or could be or whatever. So I love that. You know what I want you to speak about? So, because intuitive living, your natural state should then, and you can fill in the blanks, your natural state should be like,
happy.
What do you think? Happy. That's joy. That should be your natural state. So if you're out of joy, doing something that doesn't bring you joy, that should be a good indicator, right?
And joy can be in the extreme hard work that's bringing you towards your goals. Joy does not mean, you know, just a state of happiness. To me is, and I remember in grade 6, I've heard this, a couple of people say this, but that this happened to them, where my grade 6 teacher asked me, that exercise, what do you want to be when you grow up? And my answer was happy. And she says, no, that's not what we want. I said, well, that's what I want. And it's like, okay, you don't want that. Okay, I want to be a veterinarian. But, that wasn't part of my plan. So, or my, that's not where life took me, because I couldn't handle seeing animals in pain. But back to your question, I think when the right brain, intuitive living is when your right brain is leading you. I mean, Albert Einstein said this, and I wish I could remember the quote verbatim, but he basically said, your intuitive right brain is the sacred gift, but we live in a society where we value, or we have overvalued, or something like that, the servant, the left brain, the analytical implementer, the action-oriented brain, and we have forgotten the sacred gift. And as I said, that's not a direct quote because I don't have it here in front of me, but it's basically where you get the inspired, intuitive hits of what needs to be done or where you're aiming at. So you get the what, but the how gets inspired one step at a time. You need both. You need the left brain. For example, when I went to study in Vienna for a year, which took me to Bali, there was a few sidetracks there, but it was a fantastic year of studying visionary art. But it was about, knowing this is the what, and then waiting and asking for the how to show up in terms of auctioning off all my art, doing several garage sales, taking a few extra teaching contracts at the university, like all the 7-point plan, including a $25 win at the lottery. Not much, but it all adds up. and implementing that. You can't just sit and wait for things to fall into your lap unless that's what's meant to be. But if you get that inspiration to act on it, if you and it's really about having the left and right brain working together in harmony. It's like a beautiful ballroom dance. You need a strong leader, and that should be your right brain, your intuition, your heart. I say right brain, but it's direct communication with your heart. And you need a strong follower in the ballroom dance too, or else the dance falls apart. You need both. And that follower has a role to play, just like your left brain and your action-oriented self.
I love that. I love that, Dominique. So, Dominique, is there anything, because our time is running out here, but I wanted to know from you.
Already?
I know. Is there anything, something you would still like to leave the listeners with on this joy to living from the heart, to living, intuition into action? Is there something you'd like to leave them with?
Absolutely. There's not one way to do things, and there's the courage to do it your way. It makes me think of Frank Sinatra. But it's really about doing things your way. Will sometimes get funny looks from people, as in that doesn't fit within the social norms or within how things are done. The whole North American, you graduate from university, you get a job, you buy a house, you get 2 cars, you get 3 kids. I don't know what it is, but what other people expect of you. And it's easy to fall into that. Always check in with your heart. What feels good? Your emotional guidance system. Abraham Hicks talks about this a lot. I love listening to those channelings. It's really your intuition talks through your feelings as well as all your senses. And so feel, if something does not feel right for you, it's being able to discern, is it because this is a stretch of my comfort zone, which will always be your intuition. Your intuition is always an invitation to grow, so it will always feel like a stretch of your comfort zones. Or is it that feeling that's saying, this is not me, and it's not going to serve anybody if I follow this path that's not mine. So that last thought basically is about having the courage to embrace the mystery, one baby step at a time, until you're feeling that you can take those leaps of faith, and knowing that if you ask, you will receive.
Yeah, love that, Dominique. Beautiful. Yeah, even the Bible says that, right? Ask and it is given. It's the natural, it's the universal law. It is always given, and now you're just walking towards it, and that's the journey, right? You're walking towards that which you've asked for, because it has been given. It doesn't just, And that's where I love what my favorite thing that you just said was your invitation. I mean, your intuition is always an invitation to grow. I love that. I love that. I love that. I love that. I really love that. So thank you for that. And
you're welcome.
Lastly, your free gift. Dominique, you want to speak about that?
Certainly. I think you'll be providing a link to it. Basically,
yes.
I would love to give your listeners a 26-minute guided meditation. This one was inspired from sacred fire ceremonies, but when I channel, be it an intuitive reading or a discovery journey meditation, I basically see what looks like a Disney Pixar movie in my mind's eye. But the meditations, instead of just being a story, there's spaces for you to tap into your intuition, for you to listen to guidance, to experience something, and it will be different every time you listen to it. So the Tune Into Your Intuition meditation that you can have access to will help you let go of what doesn't serve you so that you can manifest what does, but also will help you connect to your divine helpers, and again, whoever that happens to be for you, to their unconditional love and their guidance. So may it raise your vibration and may help you tune into your intuition. And there's so much more that you can access on my website as well.
Yeah, thank you, Dominique. This is a blessing, such a blessing, such a joy and a great conversation. So I'm thankful to you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Ilola. This was beautiful.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And we'll see you again tomorrow. Thank you.